You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K22. I'm your boy, as always, Momutsi. Alongside me, three-time NBA champion, BJ Armstrong. But we had to bring another NBA champion along with us. The man who needs no introduction, the one, the only, Mr. Brian Scalabrine. How you doing today, sir?
Normally when they say the one, the only, they always call me the White Mamba. Man, one and only Brian Scalabrine. I like that.
I'm mixing it up. You know what I'm saying? I'm mixing it up. How you doing?
Hey, Scal, I didn't know the White Mamba until much later. I knew Scal when he was grimy, when he was dirty, when the guy was down there. And you know what, man? Welcome. Doing great. You are doing an incredible job. The transition you made as a player, now you're winning Emmys? What you winning? Grammy? You're doing something. You're just winning Emmys.
Emmys.
Congratulations. You're the voice of the Celtics. Just talk us through, man. I'm so proud of you. It's like, I feel like one of my own. You are.
Let me tell you,
to be your dad. You know, and it's so great.
It all started. It all started at the. What was that place called? The Soup Plantation. What was the place called where we went to go get the salad?
I can't remember. Scal, I'm old now. I don't remember anything.
So I'm at the time it was SFX, right? And Bob Myers is recruiting me. He's been recruiting me for like 3 months. And me and Bob are talking all the time, back and forth. Me and Bob are still cool, right? Like I ended up hiring them, and you'll hear the story. Me and Bob are talking back and forth, and everyone's like, you got it, your agent is so important. Bob would never say, Scout, are you going to sign? You're going to get this done, right? And so finally, I'm hanging out with BJ, and BJ's like, Scal, close that door behind you. Let me tell you how it really is. Like, normally, we recruit clients, and those clients are usually like, we want those clients. They're going to make a boatload of money, and it's going to help our brand. In this situation, we're kind of doing you a favor. So you better sign with us. So as soon as I became like, when I was the man, y'all recruiting me, I'm like, let me test my option. As soon as it got flipped, I'm like, oh wait, I'm lucky to be with y'all. All right, give me that paper. Let me sign that thing.
You can't be. I can't close the door, Scal.
It goes way back, man. It goes way back. And let me tell you, everyone thinks that Nowitzki was the originator of the 1 foot step back. And I've never seen that shot before. Bees was trying to teach me that shot right from the beginning. Like, Scout, you ain't gonna get your shot off in the NBA, man. You gotta have something special to your game. This is the shot you need. Like, I ain't shooting no 1 foot floater. I ain't Bob Cousy out here. He's like, nah, man, I'm telling you. Now, how about we got Kevin Durant, we got Nowitzki, everybody's shooting the 1 foot, Kobe Bryant, everybody's shooting the 1 foot step back. And BJ was the first one trying to teach me that move.
Man, that's crazy. The Scal step back, you know what I'm saying? It could be your silhouette that they got printed on the court. But Scal, you've had an amazing career. And, for me, as a fan, growing up, you were part of that iconic Celtics team that was celebrated the other night with Kevin Garnett having his jersey retired and sent up to the rafters. You hosted the event. You were out there on the court talking to KG. What was that experience like for you to have the band back together?
Yeah, so a few things. Let me unfold this for a second. So I know the KG retirement ceremony is happening, and about a month before, the Celtics kind of allude to me like, hey, we're thinking about you and KG sitting down and having an interview. So I'm in my mind, I'm thinking we're going to go backstage, we're going to have an interview, and then we're going to cut it up, and it's going to go on the Jumbotron, right? So as it gets closer, I'm like, so how's that interview going to go? When are we going to do it? We're going to do it before? We're going to do it the night before? Like all these things. And they're like, nah, like the way we're going to do it is like you and KG at center court. And instead of him doing a speech, we're going to do this. And then they just kind of walked away. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. When you say center court, you mean in front of 20,000 people for KG's retirement ceremony. So instead of him thanking everybody, you're asking me to ask questions to him. And it was like, and they tried to go a different direction. It was his only demand. My only demand is, I don't want to do a speech, but I want to sit at center court with Scal, with White Mamba. And when I got that back, man, my stomach started turning, man. I'm like, well, the way I work in life is I do things and I'm like, all right, there's a game today. Like the Celtics are playing the Sacramento Kings. if I botch the game, there's another game in 2 days. That's just how it goes. There's 82 of these bad boys, right? There's only one of one when it comes to the Kevin Garnett jersey retirement. So I did not want to mess it up, and I didn't want to make it about me. I wanted to make it about him, and that's not an easy thing to do. Plus, there's no reference point to go look and say, oh, look how they did it right here. This is how I can just copy what they're doing. So I was torn up for like, I'd say a good 2 weeks beforehand, trying to, deliver what like the real Garnett, because a lot of people don't know he's a phenomenal teammate. He cares about each individual. He's not all the craziness, the headbutting, the stanchion, and all that stuff. That's just a small part of who he is. I mean, it's a big part from the standpoint of being prepared and focused, but the guy's like the most unbelievable, selfless teammate I've ever met in my entire life. And I mean, the guy cares about. It's hard as a player to care about, every one of your teammates, or the film guy. Usually have 2 or 3 guys that you're really close with. Garnett was close with everybody. He cared about everybody, rookies, film guys, assistants, interns. Like he just had an unbelievable pulse on the team. And I just wanted to make sure I got that across. And, I was like nervous about the whole thing, but everyone said it went good, but I'm just like kind of now like recovering. And this is 3 days later from the standpoint of like, I just really want to like kind of go back and watch it and enjoy it.
Sky, I watched it. You weren't good. You were great. You were phenomenal. And for those of us who knew you prior to this career, and people say, what is he really like? I go, that's what he's really like. He's been this way. That's how he really is. Like Scal, this is Scal. Scal is going to talk basketball for like, I don't know, Scal would come into the office. We talk basketball, 5-6 hours? We maybe
crazy.
Go to lunch. We just talk basketball. So this is not going to be a 5-hour podcast. We're just going to get you in and get you out. No, you got things to do. But Scott, I've never seen you nervous before until I saw you with KG. Scal always has something to say. You have an incredible personality. You're witty. You got funny things with Scal. Like that was the first time I saw you like just a little bit. I mean, I know that was an emotional thing on a lot of different levels, but to see all of you guys there, and I want to say then, can you comment about this? I thought it was so cool during the whole thing, how you were hosting it, and it was like simple, but it was sophisticated. But when KG and Ray Allen came out and hugged, like I stood up. I was like, that's awesome. I don't know what happened before then. Talk about that, Scal, because you guys are brothers no matter what. I mean,
for sure.
You're a champ. I mean, you are the champs. So talk about that.
And if it wasn't for Ray, we would have never got together. Like, I think there was a trade on the table for KG before the Ray Allen thing. And I think the story is KG politely declined and said, y'all just not good enough. Like we need more players than that. And as soon as Danny make that move to get Ray Allen, then like that was the domino. So yeah, like no question about it. And I wasn't there for the beef, right? We were the closest team you've ever in 2008, 07, 08. Every barbecue, everybody's charity event, we've all supported each other. And then you know how it is, like, and you were in the first Bulls championship run. Once you win one, everyone becomes like rock stars. It's like It's hard to stay close. It's hard to do team events when you spent that much time together and you won in deep playoff runs and all that. By 2010, everyone was still cool. I went to Chicago, and within 2 years, I came back as a broadcaster, and I could tell, like, it was weird, man. I could tell, like, you can just feel the tension. So there was something going on there. Then Ray leaves and everything like that. But I'm just glad that it went full circle and it's everyone's cool again. So the way I did it, I was first going to have KG kind of shout out the bench in a question format. Then I was going to go to Rondo and Perk. And then from there, I was going to go to Ray and almost like ask him a question about Ray, 30,000 feet up, let him take it wherever he wants to go. So I didn't do that. KG, I asked him about the bench. KG just went through, and then gets to Ray Allen, and at that point, Ray comes up, they embrace. Paul Pierce comes out, and I'll tell you the funny part about it, right? Like the chair is right behind the pitcher, right? So he stands up, and those guys do. So I stood up and I moved to the side. As I'm walking to the side, Ray hands me his phone. So I just became like a groupie, right? Take a shot. like Scal. I'm up here, the MC, and Ray Allen hit me with, "Yo, Scal, take this picture for me."
That's awesome.
So I walk around, I take the picture, and I thought, like, I'm so glad I was out of it. I'm so glad I didn't sit in it. It would have been funny as hell. Like, the internet would have killed me if I would have went up there in the big four.
Man.
I walk around the front, I'm taking pictures for Ray. I had him in his phone back. And which is crazy because I tell you what, if I was Ray Allen and I'm like squashing the beat, the last thing I'd be thinking about is like, yo, get a picture of this, man. So that's just not how I think, So, but I'm glad that happened. They embraced and all that stuff. And there should have never been a beef or whatever it was.
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad that thing's behind all of them. Because that last thing is, that should not be the mark of the 08 championship team.
Yep.
Ray and Paul don't get, or Ray and KG don't get along. Like we're beyond that.
So, you talk about how close that team was as a unit. What's your favorite story from being with that group of guys on that championship year? Maybe an off-court moment, on-court moment. What's your favorite moment from that season on the way to winning that championship?
Yeah, so people ask me, like, obviously winning a championship or raising a banner, those are like, I call them like vanilla moments that you'll never forget those moments and what you go through, right? But like when people ask me, and maybe I'm wrong, like maybe the way I think about it is the wrong way, but when people ask me about like the team, I remember like random shit happening in the locker room, like plane rides, like I remember like card games where this insane amount of money and you just actually start seeing like people start sweating, because there's like real money on the line, right? Like all that type of stuff. And I always remember like this, like there's like an amazing Kevin Garnett story. Big Baby was crushing everybody in arm wrestling and got back to Garnett. And there's a big bet on who's going to win the arm wrestling. That was a good story. But this is like a good way to like explain the team, right? We had this moment. We're in the locker room and we got the music blasting. And everywhere we went, there was music blasting everywhere. The only time the music stopped is when Doc talked and then like practices. But as soon as practice was over, it'd be like, bam, the music would kick back on. So it was always music being played. So we got the music in the locker room. In our locker room, the film room and the locker room are the same. So we're in the locker room and there's like people debating basketball. That's like, did you see the games last night? That's usually the group that I'm in. You got a dice game over here. You got a card game over here. You got like people talking about what happened last night and all that. I'm not getting into that. But like there's all this stuff going on, right? And you got the music in the middle. So Doc comes in and we got everything's happening. Bah, 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 bah. And the dice game, it was crazy. Like no one hit 7, right? So the money was piling up and it was like getting intense. And Doc was like, all right, man, let's get this film started. Hold on, man. We got like 10,000 in the pot. Boom, like hit it, right? So anyways, they stopped the game. Doc's like, we got to start practice, right? So we stopped the game. We're like, all right, the music gets turned down. Everyone kind of works their way back to their seat. The card game is on delay and people are still talking shit. So it took us like it's almost like kindergartners settling down. All right, everybody settle down. You flip the light switch on and off. Settle down. So finally, it took like 5 minutes for that to happen. And that's a long time. Finally, they go to hit the film button. Doc has a talk and the guy, Brian Adams was his name. He goes to hit the film and the film doesn't work. It didn't work for like a good 5 seconds. Like, I don't know what's going on. As soon as he said that, boom, the radio goes back on. The dice game is on. The card game is on. Like people arguing about who's the best player in the league, who the greatest player of all time is. And it started all over again. And then finally, 5 minutes later, it was like, you can just imagine, but like grown ass competitive kids. Like that's what it was, right? And it was nuts, man. It was nuts. But that was like a good example of just the team. We would bet $1,000 that you couldn't swish a free throw, and everybody will be lined up for Ray Allen to shoot a free throw where he had to hit all net, and there'll be 8 guys standing underneath it. This is like happening in practice, So that's like the environment that we lived in, and it's no wonder, like when you're living under that type of pressure every single day, there's no wonder that we end up winning the championship with that team. Like nothing. Like some things got to us, but that team was ultra competitive. So I remember all the competitiveness of the guys.
Hey, Scal, I just wanted to ask you this. Like, I knew Kendrick Perkins in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that he had this type of personality. Did you see this coming? I mean, he is, the whole Carry On and the whole television. He does an incredible job. Shout out to Big Perk. Did you see this coming? I mean, so many characters on the scene. You had KG, you had Paul, of course. Doc was on television prior to him coaching. Yourself, Ray Allen, Big Baby. I didn't see Perk come in, though. When did you know that Perk was like, I didn't even know he was interested in doing media?
Yeah. Perk, that's why I love, especially with like stuff going on today, right? Like the divisiveness of our society, right? And it's great. Like playing sports is amazing because you get to meet people from Europe, from inner city. Me and Tony Allen, he from the city of Chicago,
TA,
where he grew up, and I grew up in the middle of the country and outside of Seattle. And you meet all these people. And Perk is a good example. And by this time, I kind of like I've been through the league, and I know like nothing on the outside is what really people are. Like you got to really get to know somebody. As you know, like you'll hear a bad, like, oh, that guy's a bad guy. Then you meet him, he's like one of the best dudes ever, right? Like Rasheed Wallace. Everyone's, oh man, we got to watch out. Rasheed Wallace. Man, Rasheed Wallace is like one of the greatest teammates of all time.
Great guy.
So you like all he wants is everyone to be good and like super competitive, wants to win. And but people like make these like blanket statements over people. And here's one that I think about Kendrick Perkins. Like he's from Texas, right? So he has a draw. And he also talks really slow. He doesn't do that now because I remember there'd be times when you get into the debate and when you're in debate, you can't be like, well, y'all, you gotta get in and get out, right? You gotta come in, come out, right? And so he used to be able to do that, but he really talked slow. But he was like, I always tell people this, like people would judge people by the way that they talk and like how fast they talk or how like put together they are. But a lot of people like that talk, like all proper, they got some bullshit behind them. Kendrick Perkins, and I'm right about that. There's a lot of bullshit in the NBA, right? So Perkins, he was as real as he got. He kept it 100 all the time, but he just talks really slow. So I always tell people before Perk got in the media game, I go, he's one of the smartest players I've ever played with. He's so in tune with the NBA. He knows like guys' tendencies. He knows like how guys like the emotional side of the league. He knew it better than I did right off the jump. And he would always point certain things out. So if you asked me, would he turn into this type of star? I would have said no, because I don't think people would have gave him a chance. But now that ESPN has given him a chance, and he was phenomenal on his Twitter account's phenomenal. He has great takes. Some are bad, some are good, whatever. But I knew it when it happened. I'm like, yeah, I could totally see this happening because he's actually really, really bright and he's really smart. He really knows the NBA and he knows other sports as well. So I could see him growing into this because like the information that he brought, even though it wasn't delivered the way that we're used to seeing it on TV, was always top-notch information.
Scal, I listen to you do every Celtics game on the Celtics broadcast, and I think it's fantastic what you guys do. And I need you to help me here because I've been trying to tell BJ for the longest now about the impact of the Time Lord on the defensive side of the ball for the Celtics. And he's just not buying it. He told me the other day he'd rather have Mitchell Robinson. I said, listen, BJ, I need some help. So Scal, can you speak to that about the impact that this Celtics defense has had since the turn of the year?
Are you really going here, Mo?
Yeah, of course I'm going here.
Oh, we have a guest here. We can't be arguing in front of Scal.
Every day. He sees up close and personal. If you don't want to believe me, you can believe Scal.
No, I actually, this will be a good test for you, Mo. What makes now Ime did something with Rob Williams and Time Lord that changed the entire Celtic defense.
Yes.
Have you recognized what he has done with Rob defensively? That basically when the Celtics really started to guard, it was the one adjustment. I've never seen it. I never thought it would work.
They just keep him as the weak side help defender.
Yeah, it's BJ. They're playing him. They're playing him like it's like a one-man zone. It's really weird. Normally, bigs will guard bigs, and then they'll be in the coverages, right? So a big comes up and sets a high pick and roll. Rob will be in that coverage, and then they shoot the ball, and maybe he wouldn't rebound, or they drive it, and he wouldn't be the last line of defense. So he may put him on like whoever the corner shooter is. So he'd always kind of set up to on the right side or left side block, and he would be guarding that corner shooter. And he's getting really good at reading the gather. Like that's a big part of the NBA now, right? Like you can't just read where a guy's at. You got to read their shoulders. You got to read their hips. You got to read their eyes. And he's really good at now building out to that corner 3-point shooter and timing it up where when he knows that a guy is really threatening drive so he can come in and help. But what BJ is saying is like, you can't count on him as an on-ball defender in the post. You can't. Like, he's just not big enough against the Embiids of the world. It's going to be tough. And Al Horford guards those guys. So Rob Williams plays off the ball for about 3.5 quarters. And then if he's the one they're going to go with, he has to guard the 5. But I never thought that he'd be able to read that gather. I always thought like he was a step behind or his positioning wasn't great. But this year in particular, he has really grown in that role. And this didn't happen at the beginning of the year. They moved Rob off the ball. As soon as they did that, all they do is switch. They switch every single screen. So if there's a pin down or a ball screen, Rob is still low. And he's doing a really good job of reading that guard that's penetrating. And I like at the time, I've never been a huge Mitchell Robinson fan, but I didn't know if Rob could ever be your starting 5 to win a championship. But now the way that they use him, and Al Horford has been amazing, you can, because he's basically a wing defender that can also block shots and rebound and has freed him up. He's just not what you would call like a guy that wants to wrestle with Joel Embiid. And it's like, I thought when I first saw it, I thought it was like, oh, that's interesting. Rob keeps getting switched off into the corner man. Then I kept watching, I'm doing every game. Then I'm seeing how successful it is. Then I had to just start asking the coaches, like who decided to do this? And as a group, they all decided like this is the best way for them to guard. And of any players out there, he has the athleticism to defend the rim and get out to that 3-point shooter in the corner. And there's probably not a single big that can do that. And it really, like the Celtics have been lapping the field. I think at 91 defensive ratings since they have done that. And it's an amazing adjustment. But I can understand what BJ's saying. I'm interested in the playoffs when you play the team, 7 games in a row, if like Eric Spoelstra or Nick Nurse would try to take advantage of it. Because right now it's only been a problem for most NBA teams.
So, Scal, we did the game here on Sky Television, and one of your former teammates, Jason Kidd, and the way he played, you guys lost the game there to Dallas. Yeah. Jason Kidd brought the Time Lord to the strong side of the ball. And I thought only Jason Kidd would recognize what was going on during the game and made sure that he got the matchup he wanted before they initiated the offense.
Yeah. See,
like it was like one of those things. Like I was like, only Jason Kidd would be that petty in a regular season game to do that and exploit that.
And that's what and that's what I'm worried about in the playoffs. Like there's a lot that goes into it. And then there's obviously a counter to that. But like I said, the Celtics defense is lapping the field. Yes, and you're exactly right. You put them on the strong side, you drive them. Now all of a sudden, Marcus Smart is at the rim, or Jaylen Brown is at the rim, and you're trying instead of like basically what Jason Kidd did, instead of avoiding it, he took it head on. And I wonder if other coaches are going to do that too, because I'm not saying that they can't figure it out. I'm just saying since their defense has been off the charts, and I'm being honest, Rob Williams floating at the rim is a problem for the NBA.
Yes, it is. Yes,
but,
it is.
Sometimes just coming in for one game, not being able to study, there's different things that you can do. Which one's the Martin? I think his name is Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin for Miami.
For Miami, yeah.
He kept getting the ball on the catch. And like if you got a big on you, and this is like the Steph Curry or Damian Lillard effect, if you got a big on you, guards would get into their bag, like Hezzy, they do that. Mm-hmm. Well, Caleb Martin was getting the ball and driving it. And then he would kick it, and then he would relocate for 3. And we still beat Miami by a lot because they had players out. But that play in particular, I was really worried that I could see in a series that this could come back to bite the Celtics. But then, like the Celtics can obviously counter by doing something else. But what J. Kidd did and what Eric Spoelstra did, those are the things when it comes to the Celtics defense, and I know they're lapping the field right now, I'm a little bit worried about taking Rob and getting him in action above the break and not necessarily letting him stay at the rim.
How far do you think this team can go this season, given a transformation they made? This not often we see teams that start so slowly turn things around in such a dramatic fashion. So how far do you think they can go?
I think the Eastern Conference is about matchups. Like if you guys want to have me on, like that week before, like the play-in week, I'll tell you where I think I can see how the conferences are going to, the matchups are going to unfold. But man, like if there's certain matchups that are just bad for people across the board, I don't think, I think Brooklyn could beat Milwaukee if Ben Simmons is healthy. I think Miami could beat Brooklyn, but I don't think Miami could beat Milwaukee. So once I see how it's going to go and I'm looking at it, I'm saying, all right, well, they have a chance. Any one of these teams have a chance to go to the finals, and it's legit. I think Milwaukee's probably the favorite, and then Brooklyn's like right underneath them not because of the talent. It's just I don't know what's going on with the vaccine mandate. I don't know what's going on with Ben Simmons getting an epidural when he hasn't played a minute. This is crazy stuff going around with Brooklyn, right? But I look at it like Milwaukee, Brooklyn. Like I feel like that's like a notch up. Then I think Miami and Boston are like right below them together. Like, man, both those teams are well coached, well organized. The chemistry is amazing. Below that, I look at Philly because I don't see why this Harden thing hasn't worked out. I like Embiid getting all those possessions. There's a lot of the only problem I have with Harden and Embiid right now is like I feel like half the time they're searching out fouls. Like just play, man. You'll get fouls. They draw more fouls than any player in the history of the NBA, but the playoffs start to happen and referees are better. A lot of times,
right.
The good officials don't go for that bullshit. Like in the playoffs, as you go up, there's better officials, and they are. I know people hate the refs, they boo the refs, and all that stuff. Dude, some of these calls that these guys make, and like the way that they can see the game, it's amazing. So I just don't think that stuff will work later on. You just got to play, and if you get fouled, you get fouled. You're worried about getting fouled, or you're complaining about getting fouled. It takes energy away from trying to win. So I feel like they're a notch below, and then I would say, who else is the last team? I'm not high on Chicago, even though I think they'll be better with Caruso and Ball back. Obviously, Cleveland's fallen off because of the injuries. Toronto's an interesting team because Nick Nurse is very innovative. So I kind of unfolded that way. But right now, there's a good chance that Brooklyn and Milwaukee play in the first round. Like, that's crazy to me. It's just the way it goes. That's why what's really interesting, there's been a lot of talk of the NBA. Like, if you win the East, right, you get to pick your opponent, number one. Now, the number two, and you can only pick 5 through 8. So, like, the first pick, no one's picking Brooklyn. No one wants to play Brooklyn. So if you're 1, you say, I'll take Cleveland. You're 2, you know what, I'll take Chicago. If you're 3, like that's I think that the NBA should do that. Plus, it would create a lot of drama.
That would be interesting, Scout. That would be great.
Especially if you're the first seed, you pick your opponent and then you lose. It would just be pure chaos.
Oh, the chaos is what we root for in the NBA now. We like the drama. That's why they have LeBron and KD up there picking teams for the All-Star. That's why they have the last pick. I think the NBA thrives off of drama. Thrives. This Russell Westbrook stuff. It's like the NBA loves drama. So when you unfold it, yeah, that's probably how this thing needs to go. I think, especially with teams not caring about the regular season, like Brooklyn, they're not a 7 seed. They're just not, man. They got the best player in the world. So you should be incentivized to say, I don't want to play them. I'd rather play Atlanta, whoever it is.
Scout, I know you got to get going here. Take us through the Western Conference real quick. Who do you like there?
Yeah. So, and I'm not on a time crunch. If you guys got to go, that's cool. But
no.
Okay. So, and this would be a good question for you, because this is like, you want to know about those 6-hour debates? This is what me and BJ, this is what we debate right here. All right.
Okay.
All right.
That was part one of our conversation with the one and only White Mamba, Mr. Brian Scalabrine. Make sure you check in tomorrow for part two, because there is plenty more. We get into some serious debates, debating who the best player in the world is right now, breaking down the Western Conference playoff picture. I don't want to give too much away. Just make sure you're there. We apologize if there was any family-friendly or not family-friendly language that you guys heard throughout the episode, but you know, we got to keep it 100. We got to keep it real. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the notification bell so you can be the first to hear when the next episode drops, because Scal's got a lot more to say. I look forward to sharing that with you tomorrow. And most importantly, until then, you know the vibes. Get buckets.